Merry Meet, Annie here. The video I'm recording this evening has to do with the god of the Wicca. And the reason I'm recording it is I've been having interesting discussions with a couple of YouTube friends privately about the god of the Wicca and some common, I should say recurrent, questions are coming up in those discussions. And I would like to begin by saying that he is whatever he is to any one of us. He is who he comes to us, how he feels to us. He is who he is when we are in circle, and how he appears in community and within others that we know, and of course within ourselves. So he is different, even while potentially very much the same to every one of us. In Trad Wicca, he is as present in all his many forms as is the goddess. He is celebrated through the year. There is not a moment during the wheel of the year where he does not exist vibrantly and powerfully. Now, my relationship with the god of the Wicca has grown over my life. When I look back on my very earliest training, we limited him a bit. We gave him the titles of knight, warrior, king, and the sacrifice. Just as we were studying the goddess as maiden, mother, queen, and crone, by giving both of our deities 3 or 4 titles, we limited ourselves. And throughout my life, it has been part of the exploration of my path to widen what he is as well as what she is. I believe that my personal experience that triggered my exploring wider aspects of who the god could be to me is when I considered him as sage, as the wise man. Now, I'm assuming that most people who watch these videos have taken on at least some study so far and are exploring what these archetypes mean to them and what forms the divine has chosen to show them, both male and female. And as an inspiration for someone who's beginning their study of the god of the Wicca, I'm going to read something out of a book that I use as a start to conversations when I'm working with someone. And it's a binder in which I keep teaching notes and things that I work from. And I will begin the discussion of the god with students first by encouraging them to think separate of anything. What has the god meant to them so far, up to that point in their life? Both the things that encourage them and inspire them, and also perhaps the things that when they thought of the god limited him or limited them. And we have a brief discussion to start off what becomes a delightful following of the wheel of the year and who he is at every turning of the year and who he might be at every turning of the year by a list of some of the archetypes of the god of the Wicca. For instance, the child of promise, the hoofed god, the horned god, the oak and the holly kings, the green man, the lord of the greenwood, the trickster, the father, the king, the old one, the sage, the lord of the underworld, indeed the dread lord, the sacrifice, the hero. A really good thing to try if you're beginning to explore all the aspects of who the god could be is to live with each of those archetypes and to study them all. There are very good resources online. You can use your books to look him up in all his various forms and explore everything that he can possibly be. Now, when I was first being taught throughout the wheel of the year, we followed the growth and the maturity and the development of the god, and when the year was done, as part of our study, we were to invent yet another archetype of the god, one that we invented for ourselves, knowing we were making it up, but honoring yet another aspect of who he could be. And that was a really delightful experience, because at that time we'd spent the year studying him throughout every turn of the year and everything that he could be. And I still remember, and this will date me, my invention was the Star Child. And it was very specifically the image in 2001, A Space Odyssey, of the Star Child that was floating in the universe and looking out over it. And to me, I built up an archetype of my own, which was the God as promise, as that which waited to be birthed, what was within each of us waiting to come alive. That might be an exercise that you'll want to take on after you've been studying the God for a while, is don't limit yourself to things that someone else says is what he might be. Invent some new archetypes, some new inspirations of who he can be. Now, for me personally, and for the path in which I was trained in and grew up in and matured in as a baby Wiccan, he also took on, and it is the most powerful part of who he is to me amongst all the myths and all the stories. He became to me my humanity. He became to me the power of being born and living a certain length of time within which we make of our life as what we will, knowing that we'll pass. He is so different from the goddess in that respect, because he knows he has that limited time. And even more important, he decided that he would have that limited time in traditional Wicca. An important part of who he is to us in the learnings of the Wheel of the Year is come Beltane, after the great hunt and the capture and the glory of the union of the god and the goddess, she asks him to become her partner. And he does not immediately say yes. He stops and he thinks of what it will mean. It's not just the end of his freedom, but he knows in accepting her that he is accepting a union which will bring about his ending. Most of us know the powerful poetry where he tells her that he loves her, but that when he looks into his future, if he commits to her, he sees his blood upon the corn. And he says to her at that point, when he has decided, he is willingly coming to her as that sacrifice. This is my fate, and thus my will. I pledge myself to thee in life and in death. He teaches us the journey of the hero, the sacrifices we all make, especially as beings who live and die. I would offer that in-depth study of the God of the Wicca, exploring all the phases of who he is and who he might be, as the divine male, as the Wheel of the Year, as the divinity within ourselves, the power of male divinity for men, and the connection to and understanding of that for women, and also women seeing that within the men they love. What is it that he might be to you? How do you see him reflected in yourself and in others? Do you? How would you benefit from expanding your concept of the divine to include the wider, encompassing potential of the divine male? The subject of the God of the Wicca is vast. and unique to each of us, but it is part of the wonderful exploration of the many faces he presents to us. It would be interesting to hear from those of you who are following other forms of Wicca, perhaps not even following Wicca, but a form of paganism where he is very present to you. It would be very interesting to hear what he is to you, how he speaks to you, and how you reach out to him and when. Comments would be appreciated. I wish you mirth and reverence. Mary Part.